상계 최종만 되는 거래가 상계 최종만 되기 댄데 어디 장부인 거래. 댄데 그 장부인 상이 상계 최종 최종은 장주받을 아니 김수치 제 장부 대체. 아니 다 티바 침비 아니 거기 장주 스님 이 사태 아니 장주 스님다 다기 진소의 기를 선언기 진소시들 아니 수수기 겨 님들의 겨 가르사시네 진바다시는 진소시야 되나 추베리 근데 추짐자 등의 소유는 추짐 비나를 추지 네 단에 서베ኛ는 제일은 서바티나를 추베리 사티네 수수기 때 대리적 장부까지 제일이네 저게 차체나 차체 처벌 야나 증발해서 가르치네 다위 진소집에 손는지 있어야 디나 뒤도래 세상 다리 예 저까지 하나 최인이 봐 소바 가리네 이 선은 될 때니 될 때니 네 너가 탐제라 내가 팬받아 터도 아니 내가 대화도 터도 팬받아 내가 터도 팬받아 이야기 치도 상기 주고만 터가시오 스토리 두는 로아 쇼세 가르치 제탄자디 심기에시기야 뭐지 어디서 아니 뒤도 고는 주기야.
The prayer that we've just been reciting, the Sangye Chodang prayer, which is the Refuge and Bodhicitta prayer, serves as a motivation for this practice, for this afternoon's teaching, listening to this teaching, because the first two lines are for refuge, going for refuge, and going for refuge is the door to entrance, door of entrance to Buddhism or to Buddhist practice and teachings. Then the door of entry into the Mahayana is bodhicitta, and for that reason we have the last two lines where it says Daigi Jinso Kibe Tsonam Ki, due to the collections that I have created by my practice of generosity and so forth. That's how it starts. And so when it says generosity, etc., then what that means is that anything constructive you've done during the day, anything virtuous that you've done during the day is included there. It includes generosity if you've practiced generosity. If you've practiced morality, it includes that. If you practice patience, it includes that. In short, any positive action or virtuous action, such as prostrating, making offerings, practicing the seven limbs of prostrating and so on. Because of those, or what we're saying is, those are all included in the collections of generosity and so forth. And what we're saying is, because of that, may all that act as a cause for sentient beings to achieve short-term and long-term or ultimate happiness and benefit. And that includes also the virtue of listening to the teaching. So it's in this way that by reciting that verse and thinking about the meaning, then you have your motivation for this teaching.
다들 인사다 잠도 지도 잠바 가르치고 이랬으냐? 나도 잠은 가르치는 최들이 최제들이 접기야래 다 가르치는 최서야 돼. 안도문에 잠이 가르치는 최서야 돼. 그러나 안기 CHHUB similar combine digi rangang mambuchili kyapiyari kyapsu ane rangi chö majena ane rangang le jotu mevre sanjegi chö tungiyari de sanjegi chö tungare mishiji sanjegi kyapsu jambu jeni 아니 산지기 최 수수 최 맞잖아요. 접이야 매버리 그래서 산지기 년이 철다 탈배랑 댐비 순그리 타바디 처음부터 수수유 라발이야리지 타바라 라라라리 시버자 아니 디마세 Dun-dön-pa Carlier, Manazuya, Nesune, Dun-dön-pa Maris. Dun-dön-pa ZHUG, Bandogi in the Ding-ma, CHHUB Maris. Ani Dibadi CHHUB Maris. Nanzu Karesene. Tibata Nesune, Domine Dimunity, and under Chu, the children and the Chu. And I give a chummy cheer, even Jimmy cheer, chimney cheer. And when I came near the Caricagresina, Jampa Ninjita, CHHUB Sensi, children and the Chu, Choti, Jamini, CHHUB Sensi. 이년에 책이니까 랑이 손에 껴야 뒤껴비 다른 아니 디마체 제 상계기 저 정바디 정바를 뒤니 냠내 단 마체는 껴야 안 되거든 다 저서 나는 껴서 겹쳐서 또 처리죠 Chöli 겹쳐 chöli 가려야 했습니다. 렌데 중이야. 아니 잠수지야. 아니 민중국 삼바. 아니 잠바 대인지 장중생 구수임을 야다겠다. 최문주야 깨끗이 경례의 최도 어디지? 세상원주 최리 경의 인쇄하디 최리
What acts as our actual refuge, what really protects us of the Buddha Dharma Sangha is the Dharma. It's Dharma that protects us. It's Dharma that's our real refuge. For example, if you meditate on bodhicitta, that would protect you from many, many problems. And if you don't practice Dharma at all, then there's no way that you'll be able to liberate yourself from problems. So the Buddha taught what we need to protect us, to protect us. So that it was in that way that the Buddha is our refuge and protects us. But what he taught won't protect us if we don't actually practice it. So this is why it said that. The Buddha himself said, I show the way to liberation. Whether you achieve liberation or not is in your own hands. So again, the Buddha taught that the enlightened beings are not able to wash away our sins like washing some dirt away with water. They are not able to free us from our suffering, take our suffering away from us, such as the suffering of the lower realms, like just taking it away with their hands. They're not able to transfer their realizations, their qualities of realization and abandonment. They're not able to do that. The way that they help us, the way that they protect us and act as our refuge is by showing the way to liberation. So what actually protects us from our own sins or negative actions we've done, what actually protects us from the lower realms, the suffering of the lower realms, is Dharma. When we talk about Dharma, then there's the Dharma practice in common with a person of small capability, middling capability, and great capability. So that's the kind of Dharma that we're talking about. So the real protectors, real refuge, our real refuge is meditating on love, compassion, bodhicitta. If we practice those, if we meditate on those, then that will protect us from the lower realms, for example. If we don't practice, then the Buddha comes into the world and teaches. We listen to the teachings that the Buddha gave, and we don't practice, then we won't be protected in any way. So again, what is this Dharma that protects us? So like having faith and belief in karma and its results, and leading your life accordingly, going for refuge, renunciation. These are the Dharma that protect us. Likewise, loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, and of course the correct view, realizing emptiness. So it's in this way that the Dharma is the actual refuge.
다티네 아니 배제나라티네 니지 전부 공제나 철의 교선도가 있어요. 니지 전부 공는 철의 교선도가 있어요. 이것이 잠바 공제나 철의 교선도가 있어요. 잠바 공문순의 철의 교선도가 있어요. 교선도 주디 아니 텔레티지기 대바체니 아니 디냠내니 주야티 교선도가 있어요. 디체스는들이 랑강내리 겹이야봐. 인지 전부 공수는 아니 디발이 겹두르봐. 디발만 붙이는 겹두르. 디발이 겹수는 내손이 겹두야래. 디발이 내손이 겹이 디발라. 디발이 디발에 제 내손이 겹이야. 제사한테 아니 잠바된 인지도 전주부 심도수 공부제나 니 처리 겹수 숨세 니 추비 냠내 제수는 녀송도 등에 겹고야리 아니 그에 등에 겹투야리 아니 시신지가 탐제를 겹투야리 잠바던 인지 전주부 심 공수나 아니 대권가에 있었더니 강걸을 겹투두가 뒤에서는 이 인간한지 아니 림바신도 잠바던 인지 공나 샘데 상하로 따니 아니 남시지나 유부지 산기지 구마투야 어딘데 인구야 봐 아니 니 가르수 그래 잠바더니지 공부 땀기 문주 죄식이야 말이야 잠바더니지 공부 땀지 그래 디바트 마음부치 다 누구야 다 되지 내순 계작 주 마음부치 다 누구야 그때는 시제네 림지 상도 땅부야 저와들의 잠바더니지 공자주고 semkum 야부치 제외는 치마들의 상두죠. 이면 딜의 상두죠. 어두 시제니야 드로부야와 오늘 인산이 산지 좀내 계지 다음에 번 숨기버 초산이 앞에 그랬다. 어두 신사 이제 냠내 지다디 최근 냠내 지다디 딘데 제부야리 주인승리 지구야. 생来주어 람상 마트니 우주제니 공부체에서는 생리 주어 태두게 생리야 두수 도리 미시지기 아니 람상지를 지지기 야그 차부터도 좀 샤먼스니 뒤기도가 람상 그것도 그때는 시절이 대학이야 말이야. 우리는 집중하게
There is a text which says that when you meditate on great compassion, then you're going for refuge. And this is something that also applies to loving kindness. And the thing is that when you have faith in great compassion, and then out of faith in great compassion you practice it and you meditate on it, you are going for refuge. And that does protect you. It is your refuge that protects you from suffering. So how this works is that when you meditate on great compassion, then that protects you from sinful actions. In other words, when you familiarize yourself with, or meditate on, familiarize yourself with great compassion, then that will prevent you from engaging in negative, destructive, sinful actions. And in that way, that meditation and that practice will protect you from the lower realms. So loving kindness, when you practice loving kindness, meditate on, practice loving kindness, great compassion, bodhicitta, when you do that, you are going for refuge. You have gone for refuge by doing that. So practicing Dharma in that way protects you from the suffering of the lower realms. It also protects you from psychic existence, and in fact it protects you from the fears of existence, psychic existence and peace, the peace of one's own solitary nirvana. It protects you from those. If you practice loving kindness and great compassion and bodhicitta, that's what it does. It protects you from those. And how is that by practicing these, then progressively, practicing loving kindness, great compassion, then progressively your mind will become better and better. It will become purer and purer until eventually you achieve enlightenment. It doesn't mean that simply by meditating on love and compassion, loving kindness and compassion and so forth, that just that is going to liberate you. What it means is that by meditating on those, practicing those, then your mind becomes purer and purer, and this brings you closer and closer to enlightenment. And so we hear that the Buddha Shakyamuni practiced on the path as a bodhisattva for 3 countless great eons, and how he practiced was like that. And so what we need, just like in the case of the Buddha, is we need continuous practice. We need continuous practice. We won't get immediate results. It's not like when the rain comes, then you get mushrooms sprouting up like very suddenly, very quick like that. It's not going to be like that. Rather, we will achieve results by continually practicing. You have to keep going and going. You have to really work at it and keep going at it, and that's how you get results.
That is it. bodhisattvas 처리 교수 취해야 돼. 처리 교수 취단이 취해야 돼. 나랑도 냠내지야 들으시야 돼. 냠내시야 돼. 냠내 맞지는 라강을 더 두고 말봐. 昨天以上的确实要的，两年节的，到这里就是确实节的，那到天以上的，这节的，大理的的，가상需要참的其他和国民的每位上的呢，但是的，这的每个人都多对吧？东岸大党，假如假设，到底自己娘的提的电话是的，那么属于。
And so we talk about going for refuge to the Dharma. And so I've been talking about how you go for refuge to the Dharma. When we talk about going for refuge to the Dharma, Dharma means practice. So what this means is that if you practice, then you will get the results, then it will work. If you don't practice, then it won't help you. So now, as far as this teaching, which I'm continuing with here, I don't remember very clearly how far I got, so where I'm going to carry on from is the part 4, where it says the brief essence of instruction is the 5 powers, practice them. So this is the 4th section, which is called teaching a practice to be applied your whole life.
Lo-jong de la chida lo de ni bari. Rajin de da danzi si lo-jong ke su shaya lo-jong se lo-jong. Changya lo de la rajin de da danzi ni bari. Kani CHHUB sem de la ni yari. Kundo CHHUB sem se ati rajin de gi nyambo. Rajin de chungji. 아니 전동 전주 semseati 아니 단지 중지 다도 좀 중지 딜람 아니 디 년부터 디 그래서 Lo-jong 세ati Lo-jong Lo-딜레 기타 아주 가르쳐 구야에서는 다도 좀 받아 라진디 니부티
Now, when we talk about Lo-jong, which is commonly translated actually as mind training, it has the Lo-jong, Lo mind, and then Jongwa to purify or cleanse. So there are 2 minds which need to be cleansed or purified. We need to cleanse ourselves of. One is the self-cherishing, selfish self-cherishing mind, and the other one is self-grasping. Self-grasping for short, or grasping as a self, or grasping at a self. And we have also correspondingly 2 bodhicittas. One is conventional bodhicitta, and that's what purifies the self-cherishing mind. Then the ultimate bodhicitta, that's the 2nd bodhicitta, that's what purifies the self-grasping, or grasping at the self. So that ultimate bodhicitta is the path which is an antidote to the self-grasping mind. And what those 2 bodhicittas purify is the self-cherishing mind and self-grasping mind.
That's Chida lo sinye de kare sene anju se shiripa lo yitsinye sinye sewa ripas sewa siyati ani sem sewa siyati rangi serix rangi mola 지메레바 마시고 배나 시공이네 시공 당바 제르바 시 당베 당차 제르바 당차 들리다 세와스기 시르나시 당차 되나 리바 세야되는 셰르디나라 순위까지 찰순이 찰투야로 그나 면오랍 셰부럽지네 셰부디 다음에 차지야로 봐 세와서 아니 리바 세야디 셰부디나라 순위까지 땡순이 찰기로 봐 리바세 다티나시 안들 로세야데 세시리바세 랑고 디멜레바 말이바 디멜 랑고 디멜레바 마시바 아니 이 근데지 찬네 차도로와 근데지라 로시게 셰바시게 세시리바 셰베팅이 세지에 어디 이상 로종세 로세야든 로다리바 셰바팅지로 지레 세상다 셰바세야데 어디인데 지레
In general, when we talk about mind, there is a definition for mind, or lo, says so clarity and awareness, or sometimes it's the way it's stated is clear knowing, clarity and awareness, awareness. So when we say it's clear, this is talking about its nature, and it's talking about the fact that the stains or pollutions don't actually enter into its nature. So the pollutions of stains don't actually enter into, become part of it. They are not part of it, part of the mind. So that's its nature. So in this way, it's like a crystal. So when you look at a crystal, it has that kind of clarity, doesn't it? Kind of like luminescence, if that's the right word. Anyway, like a lightness. So likewise, a mirror. It has that kind of clarity, and because of that, anything can appear to it. So when we say clarity, it's talking about that clear nature of the mind, which means that with the second part, the rigpa, awareness, it means that anything can appear to it. So that's mind in the sense of in terms of its definition, clear and aware, clarity and awareness. And in general, the word mind, consciousness and awareness are mutually inclusive.
Today lotila, ani lotila sangu richiya, nyamba ke richiya. When a sangu rim said the CHHUG singer. Ani Yunging as yet, Jampa, never think the shit of Seat in the Tiari. Yunging as CHHUG set yet. CHHUG set. To see the lot sangu chori. And long in bed to the tiny tools, naming issues yet in the area. That is loading in the church and a condor, that's near. And it has been near, we share dancing, the child near to Soquel loading in the church. Just at that, in the church, JANG, the Lo-jong, never swear the top sheet. 아니 다시 들었다 로종식이야 로 님베리티 내버스야 지체 상부초디야 야게 동야르지 탐람 지야르와 될 로종식이야 다 근데 지다 먼저 치어간 걸로 로종식이야 이내야 단대디 Telemi Lo-jong ta siati Lo-jong siati ani karusune 정식으로 또 정식으로 또디 다도 된바다나 진지세지로와 이제 디니다 디다 신념지 지고네 아니로 디 매버스야지 란진지 매버스야지 디타 시대다 지당 로중세야 지당 지는 건가 최강으로 로중지를 지리네 샘 상부디 야야 개도야 샘 nemba
His sounds cut on the machine. Well done. Now it's coming over. Yes, on the machine. No. Maybe just pay attention, that's all. Sound seems to have come back somehow. No. There are two different types of mind in one way of looking at it. You have the good minds and bad minds. Good minds would refer to the 11 virtues, the 5 object ascertaining mental factors. So those are all included in the category of good minds. Then the bad minds, that would include the 6 root destructive emotions, thoughts and emotions, and the 20 proximate ones. So these would include like anger, wrong view, doubt, and so forth. And mind training or mind purification is the method which purifies those negative minds or bad minds. So now, then the good, so those bad minds are what we need to purify, and then the good minds need to be developed. Now, in general, actually, all Dharma is mind purification, or in other words, all Dharma practices purify the mind in general. But they're not all referred to as mind training or mind purification. This expression Lo-jong, mind purification, refers to a way of practicing. It refers to a practice which purifies the self-grasping mind and the self-cherishing mind, self-grasping mind and self-cherishing mind, by way of the method of equalizing and exchanging self and others.
That means Lo-jong said CHHUB 가르스나 디기가 자와서야 됐으면 투대리 디기가 자와 됐으면 삼불로 투대리 너니 지 디기 매를 쳐디 강에 강걸로 샘 nemba 수비야리 저선 먼저 샘디 가르수 그래 디지가 자와 샘 예상 샘 nemba를 때니까 강에 강가 샘 nemba를 때니 우리야 아니 디지 강가 샘 삼보를 때니 우리야 인상 저기 샘디 샘디 개침부 제니 아니 샘 상부 주는 근데 추세야 되는 거거든요. 샘 nemba 지케네 지금 가르치네 상부 자와 제배 크리제니야 이 추를 두고 매버리 이 강에 산 투매버리 친디기 강에 있네 제 치매 강에 있네 저 그러면 친디기 강에 세야지 주 말이야 제 치매 강에 세 주이 말 친디기 디지다 가르치마 중에 생각만 되지 내 사찰을 봐 사찰의 예산이 아니 다 제부지 민기야 봐 제부지만 된 것도 제부지 내가 맞지 다 탑제비는 다 들어야지 알아 내가 지야지 다도 맞잖아 분명히를 봤다 다 심하게 수술 나봐야 해 다들 강에 면접에 예산은 일단지 다들 강에 자와 생명발 투지 예산 생명발 주득지야 디지기 자와 생상부를 투지 예산 생상부지야 답시지야 다 개친구인 말이다 저로 중세지
This Lo-jong mind purification is really important, and the reason for that is that the foundation and root of all of our happiness and pleasure is the mind, and specifically a good mind. And having a good mind brings all happiness, and likewise, or correspond, likewise, a bad mind is what causes all suffering and all problems. So a bad mind leads to all of our problems. It's the source of all our problems and suffering. A good mind is the source of all of our happiness and all of our pleasure. So the mind then is extremely important. When the mind is good, then that's a mind of Dharma. And when your mind is bad, then what you're doing might seem to be Dharma. You might try to make out that what you're doing is Dharma, but because your mind is bad, then what you're doing won't be Dharma, and it won't eliminate your problems. It won't eliminate your problems of this life, and it won't eliminate the problems of your future lives. So the problems that we have right at the moment, this is due to our previous karma, and now it's ripened. So it was already collected, as we say, and now it's ripened. And if in between times we had purified it, then everything would have been okay. But if you don't, when you don't purify it in between times, then it's going to ripen eventually. Your karma is going to ripen eventually. So it's all up to us. And specifically what that means is now is when we need to do what's necessary to avoid suffering and to experience happiness. So these two ideas and understanding these two different types of mind, the good mind, bad mind, is really important to do.
대인상 다들 지식이 냠내 뒤듣던 것이 다들 좀 나서야지. 지식이 냠내 뒤듣던 것이 지식이 냠내 니마치 냠내를 받지는 된 거예요. 다리 뒤제, 생이 뒤제, 나 뒤제, 마시바도 두스제 그래야 돼. 지식이 냠내 뒤듣던 것이 지식이 냠내 뒤 아니 니마치 냠내를 뒤니 때려야 된 거예요. 다들
So now, here it says, teaching a practice to be applied to your whole life. So it's the practice of one life, somehow like applied, brought into one. So anyway, what this means is, maybe that's not exactly what it says, but anyway, the Rinpoche's explanation is very clear. What this is talking about is how to lead, how to go about one day in your life. So when you practice properly one day, then practice the same tomorrow, and the next day and the next day up until your life, then that's what it means to say teaching a practice to be applied your whole life.
That's
so in the English, the word got is Dun-dön-pa, the brief essence of instruction is the 5 powers, so practice them. So now we're talking about the first power, so that's the power of the plan, pimbeto. Then the next one is familiarity. Then the power of the white seed. Then the power of so let's say eradication. I'm not sure that's what's usually translated as, but anyway, that'll do for now. No. Then the power of prayer. When we talk about the power of the plan, pimbeto, this is all to do with one's motivation. So what this is referring to is the idea that in the morning, when you wake up, as soon as you wake up, then you think about what you're going to do. Just like when you know, if you have to go to work, then you have your list of your tick list of what you're going to go through during the day. First, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. So it's like your plan for the day. So this is talking about then the idea that as soon as you get up in the morning, you're going to make your plan. It's like your agenda for the day. From now on until enlightenment, I'm going to do this and this. So yeah, from now on, from this day, this is what I'm going to do. Until I die, this is what I'm going to do. Until I achieve enlightenment, this is what I'm going to do. And mainly what this is referring to here is the determination never to be separated from these two minds, the conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta. The conventional bodhicitta, which is the mind, the main mind, thinking, I must achieve full awakening for the sake of all the mother sentient beings. And then ultimate bodhicitta, which means thinking that everything, absolutely everything is empty of existing by its own nature, from its own side, and thinking that with very clear decisiveness. So thinking it very decisively, very kind of like with a great confidence, certainty. Thinking this is how things are. Everything is empty of existing by its own nature. So the main mind, as in main mind and mental factors, so the main mind thinking that is ultimate bodhicitta. So as soon as you wake up, you're thinking that from today until I achieve enlightenment, for the sake of all the sentient beings, I'm not going to be separated from these two minds, the conventional bodhicitta and the ultimate bodhicitta. I'm always going to practice these two minds. I'm going to practice them again and again and again. In all situations, even when things get difficult, when I'm ill and so forth, I'm still going to practice these two bodhicittas. So it's that kind of plan, in other words, that kind of motivation.
That Kaduine Chiayvari Mani Karisa Sunaji Dagine Sinjay to the Sanji Kubaki. Ani Mani Sunasamu Many Pendo Chene Sinjay Tang to the Sanji Kubaki. Pendo Chene. Miller Robert Jenny, I need a CHHUB Pune. I need this somebody got in a keep you at some. Candidates in a children did Rashing mess of a two candidates in they are receiving never in somebody. But the Kaduine Chiayari, Jason Manjuli, Chanju Sim Kumyasi, and the Kaduine Kumyayari. Anything when you Yamneti, and then the Chanju Sim Yamat, the Yamneti Chiabuya. Yamneti in the Chiabi and Namshijanaku, Chanju Sim Sati. You Chiachi. But the years and time when Chanju singing Yamneti, Lagalan Rune, Sinjay to the Sanji Koban, Mutu Tobasho, each of me, Milapendo J. Sambar. Lagalan Rune, Pemba to be a Susilagachiati, Milapemba to be a Papa Jusun, Pemba Mambo to be a 나라도 그 뒤지 간 거로 아니 니 가르쳐 그래 민 mambuchigi 가르쳐 그래 자와지 때문에 두비야래 먼저 뒤지 간가 만한중에 파 매일 편바 주제 지내가 주제 내가 뒤 때니 랑기 미 강에서 야리 내가 뒤규네 이 편도 유야 야리 이상 수수 삼로 단데 게 더이 신경도 산지 주고 맞추지 야 편바 주 신경 가르수에 편도 제한 편도 지린이 선발이지 이제서는 전주부 승진양내 차수나 아니지 처가 주변에 신경도 산지 주고 맞추지 내 처가 필요스 예 집었다 예 순나 삼무다 예 차체 저 가르치쟁이 주뒤에 뒤치 상당고야 뒤에 상당해야 전주 심세디 아니 dinge kumyadu ba ane tongani denseya de de kande jinasune dia la shinji me ba yin sa na wa na shin me ne tin ba tongani kuwa yene ni tongani kuwa tunga jin sam dang gu ba ta tongani kuwa she de ne chutan de la shin ma zhe ba yin san ge jun de de 숨버려봐. 아니, 실험님이나, 내가 시계 동반, 남가 따로 적으세요, 봐. 내가 시계 동반, 남가 따로 적으세요. 내가 시계 동반 세요. 무슨 산적이 최근 내가 시계 맞고 숨이야. 최근제 열숨이야. 이내 식으로 불러 돌려서 봐. 강도도 수행해봐. 그래서 아주 동반인의 고아야 보지 마자니 주통제가 시민회가 이 명주다 나와나 심마인 선발. 디아메 템바이에서는 근데 이도 알아는 이도 알아지나서네 디아메 템바이 선발을 제비는 잡아둬야 템바야. 앞에는 너가 제니 중순에 그냥 매든가 인상을 지제베는 이 콘두지알 마지야 콘두 가야 필이야 그게 만든나 인도 잠바 다게 그게 뭐네 너가 지내를 나이 그 이유야 봐 전달을 필이 뭐네 너가 지내때 주가 뒤야 말이야 게임만 붙이 처인지 잠바니 군대가 진이 죽어버려. 라한다. 거기 라를 게임만 붙이 차. 현달지를 게임만 붙이 차인데 라는 내가 진이 진 용기야 봐. 그래서 나는 내가 진이 그게 내가 진이 그 뭐는 맞도 그래. 디레지 나랑도 나인도 그런 면에 내가 중요지 그게 나인도 좀 같은 군부서이야 봐. 세상에 제사 디아메 템바이 삼삼 소리지. 공기나 최근에 신경을 공세야 돼. 근데 디레 공주야 그뒤에 공주야.
So we're talking about making a plan, and this is something that we need to practice, to think about all the time in everything that we do. Like, for example, when we want to recite a mantra, such as the Om Mani Padme Hum mantra, then you think, I must achieve full awakening. They call sentient beings, and that's why I'm going to recite this mantra. And then you recite the mantra based on that plan, that motivation. So then helping others, likewise, you have the same motivation. And making offerings, you think, I must achieve enlightenment for the equal sentient beings, therefore I'm going to make these offerings. So it's a question of always having that good heart, that good mind. So then also with the ultimate bodhicitta, thinking also this too is empty of existing by its own nature, whatever appears. So we're talking about these two types of bodhicitta. So bodhicitta is something that we can and we need always to practice at all times. And even though right now we might not actually have bodhicitta, nevertheless, if we keep training our minds in it, and we keep practicing it, then eventually the real bodhicitta, actual bodhicitta, will arise in our minds. So, like for example, when we go to work, we can have this same motivation. We think, I must achieve, for the sake of all sentient beings, I have to achieve full awakening. Therefore, I'm going to do this work. I'm going to do this job. And what you're doing when you go to work helps others. Whatever you're doing is always it is always helping others. So all happiness that we experience, or pleasure and happiness we experience, comes about, arises through the actions of many actions by many people. And when we help others, then what we're doing is we're helping them to be free of problems, and eventually it can bring benefit to them in various ways. So think, for the sake of all sentient beings, I must achieve full awakening, therefore I'm going to do this and that action. And in that way, what you're doing becomes a real bodhicitta practice. So whether you're making offerings, whether you're practicing generosity, reciting mantra, doing prostrations, you have this motivation, and then it becomes a bodhicitta practice. And this is something you do when you're coming and going. It's something you do when you're seated or you're at rest in one place. You can do this practice. Similarly, meditating on emptiness, something you can do all the time, thinking that whatever appears to you, thinking this also doesn't exist in the way that it appears. If you have a good understanding of emptiness, then of course you can do this practice. But even if you don't have a good understanding of emptiness right now, you can still think everything is empty, nothing exists in the way that it appears. And just like the Buddha said. So we know that the Buddha taught this, that everything is empty, existing by its own nature. In, for example, the Heart Sutra, there is one passage which states very clearly that all phenomena should be seen as empty of existing by their own nature. So the Buddha taught it, and then following the Buddha, Nagarjuna taught this. So, thinking in that way, based on faith in what they taught, thinking that nothing exists in the way that it appears, like that. So thinking that whatever appears, in other words, when something nice appears to our mind, thinking this also doesn't exist in the way that it appears, it's empty of existing by its own nature. When somebody's harming you, then also thinking this doesn't exist in the way that it appears. And this helps us to avoid getting angry with the person. Because normally what would happen is somebody hurts us, and then they seem to be an enemy from their own side. Whereas in fact, the enemy isn't an enemy from their own side, independent of anything else. They become the person who's harmed you through depending upon many different causes and conditions, some of them which have been, in a sense, provided by oneself, some from others, and various, various conditions all kind of come together and produce this harmful action and so forth. So the enemy also doesn't exist from its own side in the way that it appears. So if we think in that way, then it will help us to avoid getting angry, because when we get angry, it's always on the basis of the belief that the person is an enemy from their own side, in just the same way that they appear to be.
That's just that in it. That's Soquel and Pemberton, the Pemberton. So that's using the Pemberton Jerry. Church nation was signed the Jesus in the Tamil THAM in the city, doing the soon to change Martin. Long to get that Jefferson Jet and they could do the down there. The ring in Sunday couldn't do the Jones. Change Simbe Pemberton. Just a dinner sheet in it. Silver, but I show you our lands in it. Church nation was signed the Jesus. 네, 뒤에 숨지. 산지 고마마도 받고. 여기 렌즈 개다도 저 신제 탐제 좀 당기. 신제 탐제 좀 당기. 되게 신제 큰일 그렇구나. 가르치네. 신제 좀 산지 고반도 해야지. 되지기 되죠. 자유마도 신제 탐내를 좀 드리는 신제 세분 내면서 농제네 드리기 칼라서들 이 세들의 농제네 신제 탐내를 좀 산지기 고만 두고 인상을 칼라서들 그걸 농제가 뒤에 신제 탐내를 좀 산지기 고만 두고 그걸 농제 아니 세그 내면을 농지가 뒤치네 진짜 탐제 좀 산지 고가 되지 내면 근데 제가 셈 상부티 아니 셈 상부티 이제 셈 상부티 계속나 여기 세세 좀 봐. 진짜 좀 산지 고가 되지 세를 제위나 세세도 셈 상부지 기주 중수나 이게 초바도 내가 사버리 근데 그 산지 고가 되지도 세를 너무 재미 산지 고가 되지도 근데 세를 너무 쪽으로 와 세를 너무 맞이 봐 쳐도 적당히 안 말아 세상에 주의 세를 너무 내면을 너무 지어버려 제네 지리 쳐두고리 미셔지기 저거 내면을 너무 맞아버려 산지도 그만 두야야 말 쳐두야 매르봐 세상 이 삼단에 칼라지산에 쳐버피 이게 칼라지를 놓자야지 신제가 산지 그만 두지 세상에 그 제비나 셈삼부지 얘기 주거리 아니 국간의 주마수나 그걸 농제네 내면을 농제네 아니 계좌치 사수네 신제 때도 산지 고바도 미치네 겨자원 죽생으로 치워 계좌세네 다 치워봐 아니 그 수수께서 가사하고 신제 때도 산지 고바도 이 삼바제로 있는데 주 펜바타야 되어 두세 디체리에서 디체는 삼 신주지기 아니 이제 신주지를 처음 뭐 사야지 주면. 어디서 지나신 가족이네 샘상부터 참 제가 펜버던도 두스타 어디에 제디디야.
There is a way in which the bodhisattvas make their plan for the day, which involves reciting a prayer where first of all they ask all of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas everywhere to listen to them. Anyway, like like many of our prayers start like that. All the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of 10 directions, please listen to me. And then they express the intention to spend that day doing only that which will be a benefit for the sentient beings. With this prayer, they're expressing the intention that from now on until enlightenment, I'm going to give away my body, my possessions, and my virtue of the past, present, and future to sentient beings in order to achieve enlightenment for their sake. It expresses the determination that today all that I do is only going to be helpful for others. Now, I'm not going to do anything else. I'm just going to do what will be helpful for sentient beings. When I'm eating, whether I'm putting on clothes, wearing clothes, whether I'm enjoying or using my dwelling place, the place where I live, it's all for the sake of all sentient beings. We're thinking for the sake of all sentient beings, I have to achieve full awakening. Therefore I'm going to eat this food. Therefore I'm going to use these clothes, wear these clothes. Therefore I'm going to use this place. And if you do that, then it's clear, isn't it, that you've, in one way, you've generated a good heart. So like, for example, eating. When you're eating, so you think, for the sake of all sentient beings, I have to achieve full awakening. Therefore I'm going to eat this food. Thinking that way, then by eating, you create a huge amount of merit. So the thing is, without food and without clothing, without somewhere to stay, you won't be able to practice, and you certainly won't be able to achieve enlightenment. So you need all that in order to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So thinking in that way, for this, for the all sentient beings, I have to achieve full awakening. Therefore, I'm going to eat. I'm going to use this food, and so forth. So then you eat. You actually eat, and you make offerings, and so forth. So in this way, you've generated a good heart, a good mind, some sample good mind, good heart, and it's also something which doesn't involve any difficulties, isn't it? There's no difficulties, and then likewise, any kind of virtuous action that you do, you think, for the sake of all sentient beings, I must achieve full awakening. Therefore, I'm going to do this such and such a positive, virtuous action. So it's this passage or this prayer that they recite includes that kind of plan. So it's really just a very small thought, and it's something that takes a very brief amount of time, and yet through this you create a huge amount of merit.
다시 샘 상고도 가지는 심지어 기기 치도 삼당부에 대가에서는 아란주의 기기 감각 심지어를 때는 중요해. 아란주 기기 감각 심지어를 때는 중요해. 천디기 기기 감각 심지어를 때는 중요해. 아란주 가르치고래 마 아메기드네 가게 라바 동버제니 용버리 연대 야마리 가리네 야마리 이네 야지니 연대 아니 디기 저라서 가리지 중앙에 심제를 때 중앙에 봐 심제기 가지고 되는 좋아. 마세니지 마시기 삼루당기는 신제 분제 마기 진행인가 마 제외는 진정 수상 담비는 랑기 디기 강가 신제를 따야기 땅을 여기 제가 땅 구야를 설치 유리를 제가 신제를 좀 땅을 내세요. 신제를 좀 땅에 신제기 디기 두기 쓰기 리리야 가르쳤으네 랑기 디기 강가 신제를 되는 중에 어디 있으네 말한도 제 산계를 되는 중세야 산계는 우면서 디기기 저와 연예지 신제 디기 용성만에 되어지 말한도 군조를 말하면 써달라 소지를 되는지 디기 중세를 봐 이해하다 아무것도 디기 중세디 신제를 때는 중도가 사야지인의 신제를 때는 연구도가 저사지인의 신제를 때는 연구도가 연대지인의 신제를 때는 연구도가 근데 나는 좀 디기 강가 이 신제를 때는 연구도가 자사 다리 메가 순에 신제를 좀 산 요런지 그때 저었다는 신제를 좀 다음에 신제를 신제 코네 지기 상가를 제국이 왜다 삼루티 땅국이야. 삼루티 땅 거들 가르치는 산계다 신제이 부티 먼저 산계를 쳐가지 너는 또 만부치기야. 산계다 신제이 부티 산기 고바도가라 자가이 쳐 신제의 신다 산계의 신 산계 추루 자가라 산계의 추루 두가라 산계의 신제의 미부티 자가리 자와는 그거지 신제를 그거 미쳐가지 지츠 가르레 스제니 무시와라는 숨벌과 주주나 어제 산계의 추루 두가라 산계의 신제의 미부티 자와리 랑기 산지 그만 두야라 그거 인사는데 산지를 그걸 제 산지를 추가 지구야라 지기야라 산지를 신제를 뒤통 지기야 말 요즘 제구야라 어디 인사다 요즘 삼는 땅구야 대리인이 가르쳐 그래 신제가 좀 산지 그걸 두기 가르쳐 신제한테 가르치 무시고 되셔 신제 냠타버리셔 신제한테 신제의 딩기 산지 그걸 맡으면 제일 밑에 소리지 영원 만부 진의 신제의 딩을 때니 초대와 산지 주고만 토수는 산지 신제의 뒤는 제 투야로 소지 이 산타 문제이 신제의 등 산지 고바 이체도 아니 늘 지켜서 단기 어디 삼루티 땅금이야 그 땅에서는 영양 주기 삼루티 내지 땅 갈 때는 페인 타이도 써요 페인 아니 랑 기분파 만부지 두개 아니 랑이 지만으로 살 랑 삼부지 수비야 어디 인사다 나중에 삼루티 땅 구야지 어디 다른 것도 신제거리를 때는 초대로 와 랑이 신제 거리 수야지도 산지 구간도 부야 주빈이 상관없지 수술을 이제 대다 지시가 생제 된다 다니 아니 산지 그만 두기 생각. 근데 다니 생제 커넥트 두기 생제 커넥트 지기 생각을 지금 가지고 어다들이
Here we're talking about generating this semsampo, good heart or good mind. And now let's think about why we really ought to generate such a mind, why we should think about all sentient beings. If we think about it, the answer is clear, because our happiness, all of our happiness, all of our happiness and pleasure, it all comes from all sentient beings. When we first came into this world, when we first came from our mother's womb, we had nothing, completely empty-handed. We had nothing. So everything that we've had since then is due to the kindness of other sentient beings. And if you think about the meditation on recognizing all sentient beings as one's mother, and then think about the kindness of the sentient beings when they were our mother, and then it's very clear that from our side to think, for the sake of all mother sentient beings, I must achieve enlightenment. It's really quite fitting. So thinking about having that kind of thought, that kind of intention to benefit others, is really quite fitting. It's really something we ought to do. It really is something we should do, because if you think about it, actually all of our happiness comes from sentient beings. We make prayers to the Buddhas, and through making our prayers, we achieve happiness, but actually where all of our happiness comes from is the sentient beings. And for this reason, it's really quite reasonable to think, I'm going to give away my body and my possessions and all of my virtue of the past, present and future to all sentient beings. So we've got the Buddha versus the sentient beings. In the case of the Buddhas, we make offerings and we make requests and so forth, and yet actually when it comes to achieving enlightenment, we need the sentient beings just as much as we need the Buddhas. To practice Dharma, we need both. We need both the sentient beings and the Buddhas. So actually, it's quite strange that we would feel a sense of reverence for and appreciation for towards the Buddha, but not towards the sentient beings. It's just like, in fact, it's just like Shantideva said in his teachings, that in order to practice Dharma, to be able to practice Dharma, in order to be able to achieve enlightenment, the Buddhas and the sentient beings are similar, and yet we don't honor and revere the sentient beings in the way that we do the Buddhas, even though we need them equally. So now, for all we need to think, therefore, that for the sake of all sentient beings, I must achieve enlightenment, must achieve full awakening. And the reason for that, why I need to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, is because, on the one hand, the sentient beings are so kind. For another reason, it's because they're so pitiful. They're in such a pitiful condition. And so we're talking about, for the sake of all sentient beings, I must achieve enlightenment. So the thing is that, for the sake of all sentient beings, that's one thing. I must achieve enlightenment. Why? Because I need to repay their kindness, and I can't really repay their kindness except by achieving enlightenment. It's really only when one achieves enlightenment you really can start to repay the kindness of the sentient beings. Therefore, it's quite fitting and quite reasonable to cultivate that thought that I must give away my body and my possessions and my virtue of the 3 times for the sake of all sentient beings. When you think like that, then there are limitless benefits. You yourself receive limitless benefits. And when you're doing this, it's like you're laying down the path for you to be able to, for you yourself to be able to follow in the future, which will lead to a very good place. And for this reason, this bodhisattva like motivation, or that bodhisattva plan is to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, and to cultivate the determination to do only that which is beneficial for the sentient beings. So that completes the first of the five powers, or five forces, the force power of the plan. So it's a question of the moment you get up in the morning thinking, this is what I'm going to do today. So thinking in such a way that your mind and your day goes onto the side of Dharma.
Well, that it is remember that you get JANG matter, but JANG is sending the major achieving stuff. And the matter, but JANG is sending the achieving remember Dhamma. Remember Dhamma, yes, and the thing that is compared to the thing. Remember Dhamma, she did any JANG is sending good JANG is sending that, and that JANG is sending good thing.
So for this second one, the power of familiarity. So with the power of the plan, you think, you're thinking to yourself, until I achieve full awakening, I'm not going to be separated from the two bodhicittas. Until I achieve enlightenment, I'm going to practice the two bodhicittas continuously. And that brings you to the power of familiarity, because just like in accordance with your plan, not to be separated from them, to practice them, those two bodhicittas continuously, then you need to familiarize yourself with those two. And so that's what the second one is, the power of the familiarity. So this one is Gombetop, so it looks a little bit like the power of meditation. It's actually a question of repeatedly familiarizing yourself with, in this case, the two bodhicittas. So again and again, bringing them to mind, and again in say, familiarizing yourself with them.
Jampa the Niji Gong Jampa the Niji Gong Neta, Sinja Tamja Devatan Chimaru Sambachi, Jampa Kungira. Sinja Tamja Devatan Tungenta Chimaru Niji Gong. Niji Gong Neta, Tungeta Siana Chimaru Seteta, Jawatang Jawu. 테나치마루 대화 교지 대화 달리 저우스 테나치마루스는 딩바스야 딩바 체메스 대화 교지 나는 체메죠 아니 대화 달리 저우스는 하섬 체메죠 저한테는 잠바 공지자다 심지어 던지 대화 던지는 치마루 잠바 교지 심지어 던지 니지 고민도 심지어 던지 돈에도 되는 치마루 대화 교지 니지 공부하러 다시 고민도 잠바다 대화 던 덴바디 지기 상관없지 심지어 던지 대화 던 덴바지 대화 풍도 심지어 대화 던 덴바지 내게 냥타베 심지어 돈에도 대화 지기 시제 삼루치 담바리 삼루 다니는데 잠바니 단다라는 심지어 던지 대화 던 데야 뉴버트게 심지어 던지 대화는 고향 뉴버트게 생각하는 단다라는 뉴버트도 뉴버트 술은 들었으면 심지어 탐지 대화는 된다 지하다 심지어 탐지 돈에도 대화 지하 뉴버트 다 상계 미션도 삼다 내가 예서 상계 뉴버트 상계 미션 내가 예서는 산지 주고만 두고도 전에 전주고 생기야 되게 버려. 잠바디 니지디 공 잠바디 니지 공인도 생제 전제 돈에도 전에 진화로 삼로지 다야. 생제 전제 대화도 내 진화로 삼로지지 쿼르리 쿼르인도 잠바디니 양 삼루타인데 대화된 데마다 돈에도 대화도 가지 시구도 삼루타인 단다라는 대화된 데야 뉴바메바 나란도 집바 심지어 단제다 라지 강행이라는 추가 돈에게 나와 집바 대외 풍부 집바도 지려야 돼요 그게 지금 무슨 쇼지게 버려 내가 제너지 말하는 거지 대화된 데는 지말 대체 개발에서다 대화된 뉴버티라는 누구에서는 뉴버미도 자주 생발에 뉴버티 매버리 심지어 탐지 대화된 대야 대마치야다 심지어 탐지 동네대 대화 지하는 뉴버티 아니 자주 생발에 매버리 아니라 다 중발에 매버리 다들 술에는 상계를 산지를 두 삼르다 산지지다 신제 탐제기 강에서 해야 돼 대화 투자를 체도다 산지 주고가 투기를 해야 신제기 디지기 체도 산지 주고가 투기야 랑기 디지기 체도 삼단계야 말이야 신제 강에서 해야 체도 산지 주고가 투기고 산지 주고가 투기고 로디 두시게 버려 대대 장주고 셈시게
To generate conventional bodhicitta, then what you need is to meditate on loving kindness and great compassion. So what this refers to is thinking how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings could have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they have happiness and its cause. I myself will make them have happiness and its causes. And then, so that's loving kindness. In the case of great compassion, it means thinking how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings could be free of suffering and its causes. May they be free of suffering and its causes. I myself, of course, will make them free of suffering and its causes. So when you're thinking how wonderful it would be if they could have happiness and its causes, that's limitless love, and specifically it's the limitless aspiration in the context of loving kindness. Then thinking, may they have happiness in its causes, that would be the limitless prayer. Then I myself will make them have happiness and its causes, that would be the limitless special attitude. So then likewise with compassion, you have the thought, may they be free, how one would be if they could be free of suffering's causes, may they be free of suffering's causes. I myself would make them free of suffering's causes. Those would be respectively limitless aspiration, prayer, and the special intention. So this is how you meditate on loving kindness and the great compassion. So you're thinking here at the end, in this case with the special attitude, I myself am going to make all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. I myself am going to make them free of suffering and its causes. And yet, if one asks, well, right now, do I have the ability to do that? Then we can see the answer is that we're not able to at the moment. And if we look at who is able to free sentient beings from suffering and its causes and give them happiness and its causes, it's only an enlightened being. So for this reason we come to the conclusion, therefore I must achieve full awakening. I must become a complete Buddha in order to be able to bring sentient beings to happiness and its causes and free them from suffering and its causes. So at the moment we are not able to do that, even though we might have the determination to. We've taken responsibility, but actually we can't at the moment. The reason is that right now we're the same as those sentient beings for whom we're developing that kind of aspiration, that determination. We ourselves are drowning in an ocean of suffering. We ourselves are lacking happiness. Nevertheless, here we're generating this very courageous, powerful mind which takes responsibility to actually do that. Bodhisattvas are not actually able to do that. In other words, even a bodhisattva is not able to actually, fully bring sentient beings happiness and its causes, freedom from suffering and its causes. Arhats are not able to do that. It's only a fully enlightened being. Therefore, motivated by loving kindness and compassion, in other words, motivated by the consideration of the sentient beings wanting to make them happy and want to free them from suffering, that we make this firm decision to achieve Buddhahood for the sake of all those sentient beings.
다디 아니 라운드 신제 탐제 강에는 나는 추도 지바 대회 통과 지바 강에는 추도 지바리 신제 되는데 강도 두고야 민두가 하시는 이 두고기 버리다 나름도 가르치는 신제 냐와 이다 돈으로 써봐 이니 추도 마치고 강다 봐도 내버지야 군돌라 강에 마부야리 대원 그래서니 대회풍 강에기 그래서 대회풍 강에기 동네기 냠타가 시다 마부지래지 강에 세야 탑 탑시 대화를 지 그래 나랑도 대주부 취주게 되는 아니 되지 담배 취든지 아니지 수수 지기 있는 담배 취지기 있는 중능이야 중능이 고급이야 그야 고급이야 아니 취두야 고급이야 취두야 지금 튕기럽게 튕기 마부치 찬대야 나름대로 이제 삼로도 만다는 신제 디지리치 삼단이 되다 아니 미용할 소리 치러봐 어디에서는 나름대로 삼단 그게 말이 나는 또 강매는 집어지 강매 세요 아니지 탈시대 사마상이야 그들은 강매 세요 탈시 마찬가지 튕기 마찬가지 나는 또 튕기 야고 청기야 상기에서 나는 또 지구야 상다 근데 쟤네 구비야 신제까지 친구는 내가 아니 나는 신제기 강에 세야겠지 튕기 주야 몇번이야 가는 친구 너가 차장 내내야 너가 망고지야로 도수 배주 쟤네다지 제국이야로마 신제까지 친구니 신제는 망고지를 되게 강에 들리 지체네요. 강에 들리 조이타브리 조야 탑시 내가 그랬지. 다들 탑시디 나라들도 참기 요새는 나라도 지구야 없어 지레디야.
Again, as I was saying, we ourselves and the sentient beings are alike in being overwhelmed by suffering, and we are alike in lacking happiness. And we might think, that being the case, then how should I or how could I take responsibility for them? So, if we, in answer to that, if we can think this way, then that there are countless sentient beings in the lower realms right now, and they have no happiness. They have so many problems, so much suffering, and in this way they're really quite pitiful. They're really quite abject in suffering, and they have no way of doing anything about that. Whereas from our side, even though we're the same as them in being, still trapped inside this ocean of suffering and not having any real happiness, we do have the leisures and endowments. We have met the Dharma. If we want to practice, we can practice the Dharma. We do have the opportunity to do so. We do have many supportive conditions for practicing, and for this reason it is quite right and proper, and it's quite reasonable to think in that way, to take responsibility in that way. So even though we're the same in that way, as I mentioned, in being caught in this ocean of suffering and lacking in happiness, but from the if we look at the sentient beings, they have no method they have no way to free themselves from the suffering. Whereas in our case, there is something that we can do. So if you think about it, then you can see that they need help. You can also see that they're extremely kind. We can see that we have the ability. We may not be we may not have the ability in every way, but we have there's a lot that we can do. We do have a lot of ability. So when you think in this way, you can see that even though we're the same as them at the moment in that way, still it's only right and proper for us to take responsibility and make that decision, that determination to lead them to happiness and its causes, and to free them from suffering and its causes.
Yeah, that is